it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back again with our second news video of the day. Do check out Tom's first news video if you want to catch up on all of the earlier stories, but we have more headlines and more interesting stuff to talk about, so we thought we'd do a second video, of course. So without any further ado, let's dive straight in. First of all, several title feuds in WWE have possibly been revealed for the near future, including one match that is reported to be taking place at the Royal Rumble. Next up, a certain WWE Superstar has revealed that they recently pitched for Liv Morgan to join their heel stable. And finally, a former WWE star has revealed that they have turned down several production and coaching roles in wrestling because they're not quite done yet in the ring. So first of all, let's go to Figure 4 Weekly Online, where they've been talking about the likelihood of various different potential future title feuds in WWE, including, as I mentioned just before, a big match that's been apparently penciled in for the Royal Rumble. So on Figure 4 Weekly Online, in the news section, they were talking about how basically Braun Strowman was supposed to get the next WWE title shot against Drew McIntyre, but now that's not going to happen because of Strowman's recent injury woes. However, the winner of that triple threat number one contenders match on this upcoming episode of Raw tonight is apparently going to be the person who gets the title shot at Drew at TLC. But the article goes on to say Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens is the other main event for the Universal Championship. Obviously that was all built up to on the recent SmackDown, with Kevin Owens battering Jey Uso, calling out Roman Reigns and really standing tall as kind of a badass heroic babyface challenger. The article then goes on to say there are several other matches that have been built on TV recently, which you may have noticed, such as the Street Profits versus Ziggler and Rude. Obviously Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, got a pinfall victory over the Street Profits in a tag team match. A decision I think I disagreed with on SmackDown. I think it was too early for the Street Profits to be losing a non-title match to set up a future title match in traditional modern WWE fashion, because they've just won that big champion versus champion match against the New Day, and I think it should have been a while before the Street Profits were defeated after that. But regardless, it wasn't the only future title match built up to. We also saw kind of a Sami Zayn and Big E kind of tease. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler as well, the current women's tag team champions, versus Asuka and Lana perhaps over on Raw, and Randy Orton and The Fiend Bray Wyatt also alluded to on Raw. That one obviously not a title feud, but still a significant one at the top of the card. But also on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer was talking about one potential feud in particular which we could see play out at the Royal Rumble. Not so much in the Rumble match itself, but in a big title match on the Royal Rumble show. Last week, Meltzer was talking about the possible likelihood of Daniel Bryan facing Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at TLC, but has now updated that since the whole Kevin Owens situation. Now it looks like it's going to be Roman versus Kev, to say that maybe Daniel Bryan will come in and face Roman at the Rumble. Meltzer said for right now, Bryan is scheduled to face Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. The only thing is, when it comes to Daniel Bryan, a lot of what happens with him is his own doing, because he's on creative and everything, and he's, I'm sure, very much thinking how he wants it done. Meltzer goes on to say, but, and again, this has happened before too, there were periods where a couple of years ago, they were going to do the big Roman Reigns Daniel Bryan program that they never got to. It just never ended up that way. They brought in Eric Rowan through the program, and they just never even got to Daniel Bryan. Remember, it was when the dynamics were reversed, so we had babyface Roman and heel Daniel Bryan, the eco warrior, but he was a bad guy at the same time, because it's Vince McMahon. Anyway, I hope this is true. I think Bryan and Roman could absolutely steal the show at a big four pay-per-view such as the Royal Rumble. It seems bizarre that we've never seen a proper, I mean, we've seen them wrestle before, obviously, but we've never seen a really huge title match that I can think of, not a big one at least, between the two. I think it could be fantastic. I wouldn't be banking on Daniel Bryan actually winning the thing and beating Roman for the Universal Championship, but I still think they could put on one hell of a contest. Next up, Sami Zayn, the current IC champion of course, has revealed that he once pitched, recently in fact, for Liv Morgan to join his recent heel stable. A heel stable which no longer seems to exist apparently, but remember, it wasn't too long ago that Sami Zayn was running with Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. And Zayn took to Twitter to put over Liv Morgan, essentially saying, I really enjoyed #LiveForever on the WWE Network. Fun fact, when I first started doing The Great Liberator, you know, his recent kind of heel gimmick, I pitched hard to get, at You Only Live Once, Liv Morgan with me, but she got drafted to Raw. There is so much to her, cannot wait to see her one day become women's champ. Very kind words there from Sami Zayn, especially regarding somebody who I think many fans, I'd certainly include myself in this, have seen noticeably attempt to step out of the shadows in recent times and really not only improve in the ring, but always try and do something eye-catching or memorable. Liv Morgan really seems to grasp the importance of the little things in a match or in a promo, and I think that she kind of knows how to make a moment her own. It's just a case of her getting more of those chances in the future. I mean, yes, you could argue that she's not like a super worker like Sasha Banks or somebody like that, somebody like ultra talented in the ring. But Liv always gives her all, and she always tries to stand out. And that's what we're always taught superstars are supposed to do. And that's exactly what she does. So it's interesting then that Sami Zayn pitched for her to be a part of his stable. I think it would have been very interesting. I think the whole idea with kind of Zayn, Nakamura and Cesaro as a trio didn't really click for me. Maybe having Liv in there with a women's division presence would have made things a little bit more interesting, perhaps. Just because I think, was it Nakamura who'd recently held the IC title? And then Zayn held it and Nakamura never really wanted it back. It just felt like a bit of a misstep in logic for me. And it just felt like they'd been thrown together as a trio and maybe it didn't really work out. The only thing they kind of all had in common was that they're all internet darlings. They're all really well regarded by the smarkier fan, pardon the expression. But, you know, everyone knows they're great in the ring and feels like they are underutilized in WWE. That seemed to be the common thread binding them together. With Liv Morgan in there, had this request been accepted and had she not been drafted to Raw, the reason Sami gives for it not actually coming to fruition, I think we could have seen maybe something a little bit different, maybe a bit of a different dynamic. But I guess we'll never know. It's cool to see though that Liv Morgan has big fans backstage. It can only help in her favour. Next up, for those of you who stayed up to watch that big boxing supercard at the weekend, you'll have noticed that Mauro Ronaldo was on commentary. Yes, Ronaldo was doing play-by-play for, well, most noticeably, I guess, the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones Jr. fight, with both men in their 50s, of course. It was a bit of an exhibition, but they kind of went for it as well. And Mauro Ronaldo was calling the action, alongside the likes of UFC champion Israel Adesanya and Snoop Dogg. Now, Mauro obviously has a background not just in announcing professional wrestling, but also various different combat sports. He was right at home, obviously. He was his usual energetic, infectious self. And seemed to get on really well with Snoop Dogg actually as well. But there was a reason that Mauro was there despite his appearance not being so highly publicised. That is because the original announcer, Al Bernstein, was supposed to be doing the show but unfortunately contracted COVID-19. Obviously, everybody's well wishes to Al Bernstein. Mauro did at one stage reference his pro wrestling announcing career during the event because I think he was prompted by Snoop Dogg, who mentioned that he's got involved with a bit of pro wrestling as well, but Snoop Dogg was saying it in terms of like, I wouldn't want to get in the ring and do this. I mean, sure, pro wrestling where it's a bit more, and then he used the word like controlled or something, where it's a bit more organized. And I was like, oh, Snoopy, what are you like, you cheeky man? Snoop Dogg there suggesting that wrestling is fake, whereas of course we all know that it isn't. Also, weirdly, Mauro didn't really steal the show. He wasn't the commentator most talked about. That was Snoop for his reaction to several different... I mean, at one point he said that Tyson and Jones Jr. was like two of his uncles fighting at a barbecue, and his reaction to Nate Robinson, former NBA star Nate Robinson, getting like cleanly knocked out by YouTuber Jake Paul. Snoop Dogg's reaction to that was also a bit meme-worthy too. And for the record, Tyson versus Jones Jr. was scored a draw. As I mentioned, it was a bit more of an exhibition-style fight. At least that's what they claimed it was anyway. But it wasn't a draw for most people watching. Scored the fight to Tyson. I'd have to agree as well. But at the same time, both men were very sporting. They seemed to know what kind of deal it was, and nobody seemed to get hurt. So that's nice. For two men in their 50s, that's kind of a nice ending. Next up, let's talk about former WWE Superstar Cassius Ohno / Indie Superstar Chris Hero. It's the same person, don't worry. Now, Hero / Ohno has been inactive in the world of wrestling since being part of that wave of releases that WWE made back in the spring of this year. However, he has made it clear in a post on his Wrestling Genius subreddit that he is not done with the business and intends to come back at some as of yet unknown date. He also dropped this little nugget of information as well in that post, which was quite intriguing to see. He said, "Oh, and before anybody asks or infers, I'm far from done wrestling. If I wanted to hang it up and coach / produce, I could have a job tomorrow. La-di-da. I've turned down a number of companies in the last 6 months. Who could they? That's really interesting stuff there. Not because they've been terrible offers or anything, but because I'm just not ready." He goes on to say, "I will come back when the circumstances and situations are right. Trust me, it kills me not to be out there doing what I love. The time will come, and when it does, it will be spectacular. In the meantime, I appreciate all of your patience. Take care, and stay safe. So here they're claiming that he's received several offers from multiple different promotions in the past 6 months for either a production role or a coaching role backstage. I think those roles may imply that it's quite big companies we're looking at. Not all promotions have like a coaching team or a production team, do they? A lot of smaller promotions, the wrestlers just put the matches together themselves, go out there and get on with it. Maybe we're looking at big companies here who have offered Hero / Cassius Ohno a place on their kind of backstage team. Maybe, I mean, he deliberately hasn't named anybody, but you're looking at like your WWE's, AEW's, maybe Impact as well, possibly Ring of Honor. Maybe those four are the ones or at least some of those four have offered him these roles, if what he's saying is to be believed. But obviously the long and short of it here is that Ohno is not ready to take up a backstage role yet. He wants to be wrestling again, and he claims that when he does, it'll be spectacular. Now, is that true, or is that, a wrestler trying to hype up their return, trying to work us bloody marks? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And that is it for now. Thank you very much for watching this news video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Look out for Adam Pacitti doing a special stream, I believe, on this channel in the coming few hours. I think it may have a bit of a wrestling gaming theme, but check that out when he goes live. And thank you very much for watching once again. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon. That little click I just did there, I'll not be rehashing that in the future. I don't feel like it worked. Bye-bye.